Pat, I would just make comment in that, we talked before, and when the pile of metal was out there, it is now gone. And the
I-
tires and that will be gone, I don't have a date, but in a reasonable period of time.
Okay,
Maybe more for Jameson. This is a conditional use, correct, in this ag?
Yes, yeah, we have to go to for conditional use permit.
So she was asking the fencing requirements, that would be up to the county, correct?
Yeah, so the county could place whatever conditions they deem appropriate onto the conditional use permit, which could include fencing or other structures too.
Screening.
Other
Yeah,
screening, yeah.
yeah.
Could include planting of trees.
okay. Thank you for the opportunity to speak and for the consideration of my concerns.
Thank you.
Thank you. If I might just make a couple comments. This has been in process for over 6 years to find suitable ground that could be used as a restricted use site. So I see we have someone else at the table.
Yes, I'm Karen Potter. And I am concerned about the property that you're looking at. We own property right across the road from it. We have livestock on that property. Very concerned about the garbage getting into the pasture ground. And I've talked to several people. Roy said there wasn't garbage come out of there. They have informed me there is a lot of garbage comes out of there. And it's probably like Pat said, it comes from the loose stuff that isn't put down, so it is adhered down to the hole. How many of you been out to the property?
The current restricted.
No, the one anticipated.
I've driven by it. Yeah, I've driven by it.
Have you seen the lay of the land? And right now, it's like Pat said, it's dry. The big slough that is on right alongside the road has never been dry until this year, this last summer. So it really gets a deceiving look as to how much ground you're actually, are you gonna fill this hole with garbage? Or rubble? But I'm really concerned about the stuff that goes into the loads. Cause I talked to one of the garbage haulers and he said, they're not inspected. If something's down at the bottom of this truck, they don't know it. So there's a false thing there that looks that if you put a battery in, you put a radiator in, it's there and it's gonna go to Pat's ground for horses. Eventually, it's gotta go down that waterway. So, I don't know, I think you guys ought to drive out, take a look, and Pat has offered to take you on the west side of it. So anybody who wants to go on the west side of it are willing to go with Pat because that you have to go through her ground to get there. Roy said there wasn't anything final out there, but 2 weeks ago, the city trucks were out there with men on the property. Can anybody tell me who ordered this? Wayne Bestman didn't because he said they had no permission and should not be on his property.
I do stand to correct you, Karen. Wayne did give permission for any of our employees or any of the engineers to go out and drive over and look over and look at the property.
Okay, that's a terrible disagreement between Wayne and me then, because he sat right there and told me there was nobody to be on that property. So I said, well, you better call Roy then, let him know. And the next day Roy calls me. So how convenient. I don't know, something's wrong here. There's something that's not, there's not a lot of truth in some of this that's gone on.
Okay, I called you as our initial contact to let you know that we were considering the land. But it ended up being pretty much a one-sided conversation with me listening to why it shouldn't be. But yet, it was a courtesy call, just like when Pat and I talked, a couple weeks back.
You didn't call me initially, Roy, you just called me 2 weeks ago. This started, I
that is
think,
correct.
way back in March. Or January, you said, right?
In January, the
The-
discussed what we should do with the site, whether they want us to examine other options, opportunities in the county versus staying at the current site. This is the public opportunity. I mean, and I'm glad that you're here. I'm glad that the other neighbors are here as well. But to say that, we're not being transparent, this is transparency here. Nothing's happened that can't be undone. We've done some due diligence to make sure that this property isn't wasting anybody's time. And if there has been any city employees taking a look on the site, I would say that's also due diligence. I wouldn't want to buy a property without seeing it firsthand.
But
And
doesn't that
myself-
come, Jameson, with a order of procedure? Not 2 weeks ago when you haven't purchased it, you haven't had permission to go on there? But if Wayne
We
did,
did have permission.
Wayne said no, so.
Yeah, we're not gonna buy land that we haven't seen ourselves. So
No, I don't
was
blame
out
you. I wouldn't
adjacent
either.
to the property last week, taking a look myself. I know others have done so too.
Okay, so is there gonna be an agreement on the road? Pat went over the road. Is there gonna be an agreement as to who's gonna take care of this road? Is city gonna take care of it or is county gonna take care of it?
And
The
Matt,
county,
is our current, do we have a road haul agreement on our current site?
if I'm aware of, I'm looking at other
But
staff.
that's an oil road, Trey.
Well,
I mean, that's a different
Right, right.
procedure.
but I'm sure there's some kind of an agreement, I would hope, I don't know.
All roads that we go on, Jure, and that are subject to the county's load limits. It doesn't require, an agreement for use. Neither does it require an agreement for farmers to use the road either with their vehicles. Everybody that uses the road and that goes by load limits.
Also, a question is the fence. EPA told me it was required. Is that right? As far as the rubble site, fence is required.
Fencing is required. It is not specific as to what type of fencing it needs to be on it. That is correct.
But you have to have some kind of stipulations, because if it's a 2-bar fence, they'll come and throw it over the fence and say it's in the garbage. I mean, right now you have a beautiful link fence to kind of secure that area. And also those trees you talked about were planted by the city to hold the rubble. So that's why they don't look very old. I don't know how long you've been out there, 15 years?
The city, the current site started out as a 60-acre site, probably 40+ years ago. And at that point in time, the north half was all the garbage, including petrucibles, which means can turn putrid. So all of the city garbage, as well as anything and everything, went into there. I don't know the specific year, but regulations changed on petrucibles, things that can turn putrid. And so then the city got out of hauling the city garbage and other garbage, like Bud's cleanup and that, out there. And the only thing that can go out there now is building materials and specified things, and that do not turn putrid. So it changed over the years. And so the big mound that's there is a mound that came from the previous 30 acres digging out as well. Typically in that Sioux Falls and that, they use that dirt, and place it in other places where they can use it. Because we lease the land, the dirt is owned by the farmers, and they have chosen not to move it or not to do anything with it at this point in time. So, but they do have the option of using it in their feed yards or other places, you know, to build mounds for livestock and things like that. So the city currently rents 3 acres at a time for $25,000 a year. And our current site is filling up. And the last contract was when this site fills, or 10 years, that we would be looking for a new site. And so that beginning looking for ground that would qualify began well over 6 years ago when I was mayor before. There is a lot of land in South Dakota, in, you know, Lake County. There may be farmers in that or other landowners that would be willing to part with it. But in the cases in that I've studied in that over this study, the lands didn't qualify. They were either in a wetland or they were over an aquifer. And if you go just east, basically you drop into the Vermilion River area. That land down in there can't be used because it's over an aquifer that is less than 25 feet below ground. When it goes up to where this piece of ground is, there's granite, like the Del Rapids quarry type granite underlaying, and the Niobrara aquifer is more than 100 feet deep below it. So there's a barrier between the surface and where the aquifer is. And the areas in that, you know, the acre sites are dug down typically about 20 feet deep. So once they're dug down that far and filled back up, then the surface will be covered with the clay type material that's there and covered with black dirt and returned to, you know, grasslands, very much like the majority of the current previous site. So if you drive by the current previous site and you go north of where the road is now, you'll see a metal building there. If you look to the east of that, that is the old garbage dump, and it's now grassland, and it is mowed and hayed. You know, so over the years that the city has been there, they've been good stewards of the land and met all the regulations and that the state and federal governments require. But finding a piece of ground that qualifies is the most difficult first.
With maybe nothing in the papers or whatever, do the city of Madison residents, there isn't, I mean, I've talked to a lot of people. They don't know any of this is going on. So what's gonna happen to their taxes?
I'm not anticipating any changes to taxes.
You're not gonna buy a $550,000 rubble site and it's not gonna change your taxes?
Yeah, so it's, the city can't increase property taxes. We can't increase sales tax. We have a budget which we have to work with that.
Is there a reserve, Jameson, for this?
Tony, do you want to fan?
There's some, not the full amount, which is part of the reason it's spread over 3 years. It'll come out of cash over a period of time.
And it will be offset by that 25,000 a year, right? So that,
Right. Correct.
whatever that,
Right, we spend 25,000 a year currently. That's
right, so it would be 180,000 for, is it 180?
For 3
years. So,
With 29,000 interest 1 year.
so it's not as
So
big a
that's
number.
more than
It is, but then after the 3, you know, the
3 years.
3, 4, 6, whatever year, it'll pay for itself from the business side, but we're looking at this one time, we won't have this ongoing $25,000 rent. Am I saying that right?
Yes, yeah,
Rent fee,
right. This property, the intent would be that something that could be used for decades.
so 15, years or whatever.
I understand that this is a question out of the blue, but I understand there's other counties that can put rubble into this site. Is that right?
Gary?
In the past, we did take a school from Salem.
You're still not doing that?
No, I didn't, you know, they can ask, But in the past, we did when they demolished the school building in Salem and that they paid to bring it to the Madison rubble site.
It's a good question. That's why I'm looking to Gary to see if he knows offhand, but I don't think we check vehicle or vehicle owners' addresses to see where they live and if there's a truck coming from over the county line. But I would say that, yes, outside the county could use the site as well.
We take names though, correct? Record names, so if there's enough, as you mentioned earlier, they're contaminating the load. We'll go through the log. Gary, am I speaking out of line there? So we'll be able to go find out who's doing it and
Most of the rubble that's brought in is charged, so we do have all their information. So if we do find something, we inspect every load as good as we can. And if we do find something, either the guy that hauled it in gets it back, or we start a pile and get it out of there. But I can say 2 weeks, I think about 2 weeks ago, we got the metal out from the derecho finally. And that was just stockpiled because I just said, I'm getting full and I cannot put this, you know, state law says you gotta recycle as much as you possibly can out of that hole, so. I mean, we'd be full if we'd have just took that metal and pushed it in the hole, so it's good that we got that out of there. And we'll shout out to,
Okay, so how much, after you're done with the hole, how deep is your dirt? How deep do you cover it?
you have to put about 18 inches of dirt on there for a pasture ground, and if you wanna farm it, I think you're at 3 feet. And the last hole that we filled, I think it's got 3 feet on it, so that could actually be farmed.
Okay, so like these two houses that were blown up at Colmar Lake Madison. All this rubble site is gonna come into this one right now, right?
Yes.
They both already have, or maybe one of
They're going to, they aren't there yet,
Yeah, they might. already
unless they
have.
started.
I think.
But that has permanent siding. And how long does it take permanent siding to deteriorate in a hole? Or a 2x4 to deteriorate in a hole? It takes a long time.
What other questions do you have?
I think that's all. Thank you for talking to me, and if you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Thank you.
You know, when we run citywide cleanup, people ask us all the time, what can you take? Well, it's very restricted. I mean, up until 1993, I think, we took garbage out there, everything. And the state come in and they said, no, we're not gonna have all these landfills. They're gonna be restricted use sites and you can stay open. But you are so restricted that they're basically couches and 2x4s and shingles, and that's just. I mean, there's a little broader than that, but I mean, it's very restricted in what you can take out there. You can't take any food products, anything that'll attract mice or rats or whatever. And there's always gonna be, like I said, there's gonna be a pizza box here and there, but for the most part, I mean, you cannot bring in loads of garbage like that. And that we are pretty strict with that, you know, if we're getting a hauler that's coming in and they're just blowing all the rules out of the water, we're just like, yeah, we're not gonna take it unless you clean it up, so. And as far as the tires go, they're kind of hard to get rid of right now, but then we got it set up that we're gonna get those hauled out in the next, I would say, month or so. It's definitely, I think a must have in the county. It's just so much.
or ROI would put that at 16 to 18 years. I'm just doing real rough numbers.
Yeah, that's not about right.
And I mean, but you said the capacity would be of this site, we'd get how many years do you think out of it?
We usually average, I would say 7-8 years per hole. And they're averaging, I think this hole now is at 3.5 acres probably. And, you know, it's hard to say with a kind of disaster, you're gonna definitely. I know we'd have another year or two on it if we didn't have the flood and the derecho.
So of these 73 acres, what do we think?
It's hard to say, so at this point, now we've got some wetlands, so there's a few acres there that wouldn't be usable. And every time you do a cell, when you do the next cell, you're not buffing up right next to it, you're gonna have a little bit of land in between there, but. If you figure 5 acres per cell, including that land outside of that, you take off 10 acres, you have 60, 65 acres, 5 acres a cell, you can get. You know,
So
10,
60 plus
10 to
acres.
15,
Easy.
yeah, cells times 7, 8 years. Yeah. I'd say 70 years, give or take. I think we have one more person who wants to speak. Two more, let's go first.
I'm Ryan Hemley. I live on the road the project, both side is on. I don't have a lot of complaints, but my biggest concern would be the road deteriorating because of this. The road's already horrible in the spring, as previously mentioned. And anytime it rains, that road just turns to slop and there's huge ruts and everything, so. I don't know if you guys. Yeah, I don't know if you guys have any plans on, making any kind of improvements or anything with the county or anything, but, I know with the heavy, commercial traffic, it's gonna be pretty rough looking road, so. And the other concern is, also previously stated was the litter. Just when people driving by and, you know, if they pull up at 5:10 after it's closed and then decide, well, I'm not hauling back down, I'm just throwing the ditch or drive down a mile and throw the ditch down there is another thing that, I'll be worried about. And I don't know if there's much you guys can do about that or not, but, it's my concerns there, my bigger concerns. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Danita Potter and I live just east of this potential site. So we built a log house 4 years ago, approximately 4 years ago. And we picked that location where we built because of the view, the beauty of it. And now we're gonna be able to look up and we're gonna see a rubble site. And with this project that you're proposing, I feel it has it's gonna devalue our property. If we were to build the property and say we were building it now and the rubble site's there, I don't even know that we would have been able to get a loan from the bank to even have a valuation of what it would cost us to build that house. So I feel like we're gonna be extremely damaged in the valuation of our property. And I get it, nobody wants to live near a dump. And I mean, how many of you would like to have a dump right across from your house? Wouldn't probably want to do it, and who wants it? But had I known that, we would have probably never built the house there. So if you've been working on this for years, you know, maybe you didn't know this potential site, but it sure would be nice to know. It'd been nice to know. You've got 4 years left to find a property. Do we have to go move on this right now? Can't we take some more time to find someplace else? For one thing, I'm really disappointed. I have a lot of respect for Wayne Bestman, but I'm really disappointed that we were not even given a chance to purchase this property. And I know it was a higher purchase price, but having to knowing now what was gonna go on it, I really feel that we would have been in the hunt for this property. The nuisances of a rubble site. I still feel it's gonna be detrimental to the underground water. It's going to affect it, and I know that you're restrictive on what can be dumped there and what can and cannot be dumped there. But a denial of unlawful dumps cannot be made for several reasons. I know you're not supposed to dump paint cans and such. Well, I've driven by the current site, even on Highway 34, and I've seen paint cans on the highway spilled out on the highway of people going to the current rubble site. Again, when the site is locked down for the evening, or people bring the garbage in and it's closed, they're gonna dump it. And I know for a fact they're gonna dump it because you can drive east of our place, people going to the other rubble site, There's a couch about a half mile down the road that's been there for a year that someone's dumped out. We are constantly picking up garbage of people going by our place that are headed to the Rebel site. And, you know, we've done our due diligence and picked it up, and we've probably disposed of it in our own manner. We do have garbage service, and, you know, I told my husband we should probably just, in the middle of the winter, strike that couch on fire, which we did not do. So it's still sitting there, parts of it is. The cushions, the whole thing is there. Flying debris and rubble, I have a really hard time believing that it's not going to happen. East across the road, going down to our place, it's a real nice slope. It's beautiful. And you go right down into the waterlands. You might not see a lot of water there now because it's a very, you know, we've been under the drought conditions, but we've got ducks and geese and I just have a feeling that it's gonna sabotage the habitat for the wildlife there. Another thing I'm concerned about are nails on the road. It is a gravel road. Is somebody gonna take a magnet down the road? And not only that, you know, we're talking about maintaining on that road and the conditions of the road. So I have no choice but to go down that road to go home. We've got to go 1 mile north, we turn right at the corner where that property is at. So this winter, even if I had pulled a trailer, there's no absolute way, not in the winter, in the springtime, there is absolutely no way that you could have gotten to that site. I drive a pickup and I couldn't get down that road unless I went into 4-wheel drive for at least a half a mile in low 4-wheel drive. And I know there was an elderly lady that lives north of there, and it took a front wheel assist tractor to get her out of the road. So I guess them are my concerns. You did talk about the aquifer being 100 feet deep under granite. Wells in our area are dug deeper. We just did a well in a pasture and it took 240 feet to get to water there. So I still think that there's gonna be leaching down to the wells. And I guess if I was the Schaefer family, I would be concerned about the watering of the animals that they've got in their pastures that surround this as well. And I feel for the Himley family, they just bought this place and they're looking forward to being there. And now, and had they known about that, if they decide to sell their property, the same thing. Are they gonna be able to get out what they've got out of their property? I would highly unlikely. So it's going to devalue our properties. Do you have any questions for me? Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
With that, okay. Yeah, go ahead. You had mentioned the timing as far as, you know, we have 3 or 4 years. Can we look for more locations? We don't have any more time. So especially with the derecho last year, the current site's full. So we're actually surprised the holes lasted as long as it has. So over the last, I'd say 6 to 12 months, we've had to push it into high gear since the derecho hit, knowing that this is gonna be our last year of our current cell. So we don't have 4 more years.
We have years, not space, left in the current, correct?
We don't have years.
The contracts.
Oh,
In the
that's why
contract.
the confusion is gonna be.
Yeah.
Okay, so the contract says it's up to 10 years or when the cell fills, and the cell's gonna be full this year. So that's why the confusion is.
But the derecho, the metal on the derecho.
Yeah.
That's being moved out.
Correct, but there was a lot of other materials in the derecho, those large structures, lots of shingles, and those shingles don't pack. So all the shingles that came in, they drive over as much as they can, but those aren't materials that pack very well, so the shingles build up pretty quick. I guess everybody here probably knows last derecho, you drove around town and half the houses had to get completely reshingled, so there's a lot of shingles out there.
Due to the, you know, I know the derecho was a very, very large area, but you know, you are taking LeCook County because I see their license plates going in there.
Sure.
It's turned into a bigger thing for lots of surrounding people, and that's why your site is filling up, is because you're just letting way too many people come into it.
Yeah, I don't know that we have the ability to restrict it to just our county. Generally, when the state issues these permits, they like to see regionalization efforts. I don't know the details.
So maybe we should go into another county and find a rebel site then, maybe Sanborn County.
Yeah. I'd
They've
say
got
that-
a lot less populated areas and you can go miles before you see a house.
Yeah.
Why feet from our place?
Sure, the city of Madison is not gonna be operating a site outside of our county for sure, but we also, you know, we wanna make sure that's something that's usable for city of Madison residents. It is farther than our current site, we were hoping it's been closer, this is simply the only site that we have available to us right now.
So, okay, so the city of Madison has this contract. What about other cities? Can't you contract with another city and haul rubble to their site? They've got to have these same situations going on. Why does it have to be this site? And,
Sure.
you know, maybe the Madison city should get out of the business and let it go to Sanborn County or a site that isn't full.
Yeah, good
You know,
question.
and if you've got 4 years left, if you're out of space, then they need to go somewhere else.
So, yeah,
There are other locations, Sioux Falls and Brookings. But they also, you know, have the same issue that we do. When theirs gets full, they have to locate land that qualifies. And that's the biggest problem that everyone has. And this isn't just a rubble site for the city, it's a rubble site for the county, you know, as well. So you know, and as far as you know, putting it out there for someone to say, you know, well, we've got a site. We've searched many, many pieces of ground and a lot of them don't qualify because they don't meet the regulations and that of the state and the federal government. And unfortunately, in that this one, for you, this one does. And Mr. Bessman did not come to the city. The city went to Mr. Bessman and said, this is the only thing that we've been able to find that qualifies as a restricted use site. And would you consider it? And the first couple of times in that, it was, I don't think so. And then, you know, after more talking and that, he finally said, well, you know, if you can't find something else in that, I guess I would consider it.
That's when I
So
wish
he
you
would not-
talk to his neighbors. I mean, there's farm. You're going into private enterprises and you're gonna take a parcel out that's in private enterprise and you're gonna put it into a governmental facility. And, but it's,
All government agencies have to do that to meet the needs of their agencies.
Anita, can I answer a couple? You had asked about where the site can be located and everything, and these are good questions. And I think ultimately the decision of the questions for our commissioners and our mayor that are here today is whether the impact that the site's going to have, no matter where it's located in the county, is worth the services that it provides to the community. Just like almost anything, there's pros and cons, and ultimately the city at this point, we've put together the best possible location we have. This is what we have to offer, and they can decide whether they want to continue providing the service for our city residents as well as other residents in this county and other counties, or if we wouldn't have that service anymore and we would go to other sites. There are other sites certainly out there. They're just farther away than what we could offer. So I think that's really the question tonight is this worth it, or you guys need to close it down and let others?
well, I could go into a few petty things. And, you know, I'm not gonna name call or anything, but few just nitpicky things like your agenda. Why did you put RUS? I mean, an abbreviated agenda with RUS. You're the only ones that knew what it's about. Any city person or anybody wanting to come to the meeting would have not known. You look up RUS in the dictionary, it's an abbreviation for Russia, or are you serious in the cyber world? Why wouldn't you just spell that out? Everything else is spelled out. So
Sure.
that's one nitpicky thing.
Well taken. You're right. We could have been clear on
Yep.
that, but I can promise there wasn't any intent to be untransparent. I think myself, the mayor, others have spoken with others, and we've been very open. And I was telling Pat where the meeting was at. And we're trying to be as open as we can. But you're right, we could have been more
But-
clear with that.
And then also when we first heard wind of this, I mean, to get information out of anybody was like pulling a tooth. And we just felt like we were being deceived and everything was so secret. It was almost like a willful misconduct on the part of not letting the public know, almost to the point of being a malfeasance.
Sure, I don't believe there's any misconduct here. There's a time and a place for everything. And we believe this is the time and this is the place for that public discord and for those questions and answers. I can't speak towards what it was, what the time and place was a month ago or 2 months ago, but today we have the plan in place and we're proposing it for the commission to consider and for the public to partake in the discussion.
And one more point.
Please.
So you have your meeting scheduled tonight for 5:30. How many of you came in at 3 o'clock and discussed everything and knew everything that was gonna, does that happen?
I don't understand the question.
Do
I don't
you guys
if
know
it's-
ahead of time? Do you have a?
The answer on that is no.
I think I need to cut you off there. It's really
Okay.
not pertinent to the agenda
Okay.
right now.
Okay,
Thank
thanks.
you.
Anybody else wish to speak in regards to their use?
I guess I have a question, maybe more for Mayor Lindsay or Jameson is, how were we transparent in this process? How did we advertise or try to get landowners to pursue us rather than us pursuing them? Did we do that, any manner?
Sure. So I know as a city commission, we obviously discussed this at meetings in the past. I will turn over to Roy. I think he's done a good job of searching out whatever properties there are in the county.
It isn't something that you can put out in that and say, we're looking for a restricted use site. What goes into it is a lot like what you just did, with the electronic transformers. You've got to find something that's suitable. You've got to find out if it's something that can be used. And so there was a lot of looking and discussions and that on what does it take to be qualified? And so besides the ground being qualified, it has to be in an area in that where it does not affect fish and wildlife. It has to be in an area in that the DANR, Department of Ag and Natural Resources, and that knows what's underneath the ground. So there's a lot of things that go into the researching of it. It's not like if you're just looking, for a new piece of ground to farm, and it qualifies because you're only going down 8 inches. It has to be land that does not sit over an aquifer, or that the aquifer is deep enough that this material and that would not have an effect on it. It also has to be in an area and that where the ground is solid. Is also, is in an area right now where there are no adjacent neighbors that live right next door. One of the things in that is that if you have a neighbor that lives within 100 feet, have you visited with them and that so that you can put up a privacy fence so that they can't see it? Well, there isn't a neighbor that lives, within that 100 feet, but there are property owners in that have land around it, so when you're looking for a restricted use site, it takes a lot of geological searching to find land that will qualify first, and then find out if the property owner is a willing seller. So it isn't something that we just advertise for and say, we're looking for a restricted use site. Yes, there may be someone come forward. And in the process of looking, I did talk to a couple people who said, yeah, they'd consider it, but their land didn't qualify. So it was more geological searching is your first step, not advertising for, for land just to get land. Did I answer your question, Kelly?
Yes, thank you.
I will answer that as far as those ground.
Damn. And please, if you want, the chair can call on you.
Yeah, you go ahead.
Okay, right to the west of Pat's is all migratory birds. We get all the geese and the ducks that are migrating. So when you talk about fish and wildlife, it is wildlife. So it is going to affect them.
Actually, Pat, in that it's out of their flyway. You're right. The flyway is west of there. And Game Fish and Parks looked at this parcel, and there isn't anything that draws them to this parcel.
I would like to differ with you because it might not be an exact path, but all these wildlife use these waterways. So it is in their path. They don't stick to one certain path. So yes, it affects wildlife.
I
So
have
we're-
to go by what they reported.
We're looking tonight for approval to sign a purchase agreement, correct?
Correct, yeah.
So the
Correct.
purchase agreement will be, I assume, contingent upon all environmental approvals, research, everything being approved.
Correct, yeah.
And we've got preliminary responses, or where we haven't applied for anything, so we don't have a purchase agreement, so we haven't been able to submit anything to the, I don't even know who the environmental government body would be,
The ANR,
so
yeah,
we
I'll have to
haven't,
defer to the mayor on that one. As far as what steps he's taken.
And we also have not applied to the county. There's still a lot of steps yet to go.
but this is just approving a purchase agreement to move forward with the environmental every application, basically. The conditional
Correct.
use, environmental work, or whatever else.
Yeah, so I'll make two possibly opposing points. Is one, yes, this is the first step, and there needs to be lots of permitting and environmental reviews done by the state before this site were to be official or qualified. And the state does not want to allow any restricted use site to be operating that has the potential to contaminate groundwater or other properties. So I think as far as the drainage issues and the groundwater goes, you know, the design of the hole has to be filled with clay to make sure there's no seepage, there's nothing moving outside of the site. And when it's all said and done, it's all covered the same. Now, the other thing I'll say is that I don't want to underplay the importance of the action tonight either, because if you approve this contract for deed agreement and we move forward, and all those other permitting steps check out, this is the action for the public to weigh in. This is your time to discuss with them. And unless something negative happens that we don't foresee this time, this site would be located here. So I don't want to underplay the importance of the action tonight in the discussion. So, any other questions?
I appreciate. Go ahead, Jim. Come to the table, please.
I was going to ask, the question is, as you commissioners and Jameson, have you talked to Billy Klein as a group and tried to make a deal out? with you?
But as a group, that would have to be in a public setting, so he would, so you're welcome to come to these meetings. We've had several phone calls. Of course, he only speaks for the family, but we've spoken to him many times, yes.
But I mean, I know he wants money while you're trying to buy different land. But you know, it isn't the city, man. You just charge more money for the rent. His property is the ideal spot compared to what they're talking about. Cause I've been around a long time doing that. It's been a lake out there for years. But maybe you guys can make a deal with Billy if you all go as a group and really try to push it.
Well, again, we couldn't go as a group because of open meeting laws. We could invite him here, certainly, and we've had conversations with
I don't
him.
know if he'd come in, didn't he?
What's that?
I don't know if he'd come in here. Maybe he would.
Well, then we can't speak to him as a group then. We
But I
have
mean,
to do it in
if
open.
any of you went out and talked to him,
So again, we've had phone calls with them and he's speaking on behalf of the family. And they indicated that the $25,000 rent would probably go up. We don't know what number that would be. And so it'd be annual payments of more than 25,000 to stay at the current site. And I would say personally, I think the current site works great. It's got the right trees,
yeah,
good
it's the
location.
right development. I mean,
And
you got
it's
the
well
hill.
known, it's well known, but it's a trade-off of do you want to make a large payment now to buy new property and develop that site? Or do you want to stay at the current site at a higher amount than?
But
or whatever?
you know, if you do have to go to Billy's, if this other deal don't work out, so everything, you just charge more to put it in there, I guess. That's what goes on all the time. the price goes up.
Yeah, and we'd have to have an agreement with them, so if the clients
Yep.
say no, and it's their property, we can't continue to operate.
I know Bill, and I've been there for many years,
Sure.
but it might, still might have to work out that way, who knows?
Sure.
Thank you.
And Jim, just historically in that the rent before was 7,000 a year. They jumped it to 25,000 a year. And they said that currently that the windmills pay significantly more. And so windmills, depending on what their generation is, and that, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dre, could pay as much as 100,000 a year. Well, if that's the case, and that, you know, we would be paying for this piece of property twice over, and then only have 3.5 acres or 4 acres to use. And then we'd be back in the same spot, you know, when that site filled.
Okay, so you talked about having the rules of meetings and open. So on the Klein deal, how did you meet with Wayne Bestman? Was that an open deal? I mean, how was
The
that? different?
commission, Danita, if I can answer that for you, the commission did not meet with Wayne. Once I found a piece of ground that I thought would qualify, and I went through all the research geologically with the Department of Ag and Natural Resources, and I went through the research and discussion with the Game Fish and Parks Commission, and there's still one other agency and that has to look at it. The commission wasn't aware of any of it until I pretty much found the piece of ground that would qualify. South Dakota Geological Survey, the Department of Game, Fish and Parks, the Department of Ag and Natural Resources. As I went around and looked at different pieces of ground, they were the ones that I contacted. They were the ones that said, no, this piece of ground doesn't qualify, and here's the reason. They're the ones that also said this other piece of ground didn't qualify, and here's the reasons. And then when I looked at this piece of ground, they all said this piece of ground does qualify. And it wasn't until then, in fact, two of the commissioners, and Pat is there, two of the commissioners were asked questions by Pat when she heard from the tenant, you know, that this process was being looked into, and they were blindsided. They had no idea what was going on. Okay, so the commission as a whole did not meet, discuss, or go through any of this. This was research that I had done over the years, looking for the needs of the city and Lake County and the neighboring counties. So this has been going on for over 6 years. These are commissioners were not involved at all in the beginning. And again, they weren't notified or known anything in that until just recently. So they wouldn't have been able to answer any of your questions. I was the one that went looking. I was the one that did the research on it, and I was the one that brought it to the commission.
Roy, so was there ever a committee set to do with this, or did you just take it upon yourself to be a one-person committee?
As mayor and that of the city, that is a responsibility that I have, is to represent the city.
Yeah, so again, January 13th meeting, the city commission discussed this topic, whether to pursue staying at the current site or to look for a new site. And the direction to staff and to the mayor was to look for a new site.
So January to July, 6 months, it just seems like that to have this be the one doesn't seem to me like you've done due diligence for taxpayers. For me.
But I think what Roy's been outlining is that he has had this on his mind, and he's done the exploration, the research for many years before January.
Mhm.
But we had to have that discussion in January to open the discussion up to the full commission, being a lot of new elected officials, and to the public, the way the pros and cons of, do we continue to explore a new site, or do we stay at the current site? And they directed us to do the former, and today we're here to discuss it further. Thank you.
I think maybe I just have a few things. I appreciate all of you that came in and expressed your concerns. I think it's important. I did meet with Pat and I was one of them that was blindsided by this. I had no idea what was going on. I knew we were exploring, but there were things that I did not know. And in my conversation with Pat, and it is still my concerns to this day, are the road and the distance from the community and the fact that you've got to drive rubble down the Vermillion Hill. I do have my concerns with where it is. Saying that, I feel like our hands are a little bit tied, and what do we do? That's the hard part. I guess but I have my concerns, obviously, with where it is or where we go.
What's our timeline, James? Are we up against any?
I would say if we wanted a new cell dug this year, it's a tight timeline. We would need to move forward with not just the purchase action before you today, but also the design of the cell. We've hired an engineering firm to make sure it gets designed correctly. And then ultimately, currently we would be doing the permitting process for the state, which includes the county conditional use permit. And if all that comes together, we'd love to bid it out to have construction yet this fall. So it's a tight timeline. I don't mean to rush you, because if you need more time or if you need to take another look, we can certainly do that. We've got a number of steps ahead of us yet.
And I'm with you. I don't know if we looked at 100 sites or these three. This was the one brought to us, or the one qualified currently.
And John?
Yeah.
a question. Hey, when I talked to Wayne Bestman, he said you had signed a purchase agreement. Is that right?
No.
You-
So the city has never signed a purchase agreement.
We have no, that's what this.
Where are we coming from here? How could you
Karen?
tell me this stuff and then not
Karen?
have-
Wayne has signed a purchase agreement that if the city chooses to purchase it, so this would be the city's action at this point.
Well, they're just saying there was no purchase agreement signed.
So that's what's on the agenda.
It's not signed by the city, but it is signed by Bestman's, that if the city chooses, the city then can purchase the land. It's like any real estate deal, and I know you're familiar with that. You know, one person signs first, and then the other person agrees and signs second.
Well, there's some discrepancy there, so.
And that's in the package, correct?
Correct, yeah. That's in the agenda back then.
Anybody else wish to speak on the topic? Okay,
I have one more question.
Okay.
Where in this contract is the contingencies for this permitting?
Towards the very end. Let me find that page for you. It's on the permitting, you're saying?
Yeah,
Page 6, item number 19, contingency.
there we go, yeah.
In the event the buyer is not issued a permit from the state, agreement null and void.
we're at a point where we can either vote, we can obviously table this, come back to it. If we have no motion, it's dead for lack of motion.
How can we ensure, or does the Department of Environment and Natural Resources, are they ultimately in charge to give Patricia state of mind that we are not gonna contaminate this water? I mean, how can we give that peace of mind to an adjacent landowner?
Patricia has been given a copy and that of, you know, the report and that I got from the state, you know, that says it at this point, it appears that this property is qualified. And so when she met with me in my office over a week ago and she asked to see those papers, she does have those.
I think ultimately, Kelly, the answer, yes, the state is the one, the reviewing entity that ensures that this property is required.
And then I'm assuming this is a reoccurring, deal, right?
I don't know that.
What do we do now? Do we send samples or, I mean, how do they regulate our current site?
Yeah, we submitted an application and the mayor's been working on that and it has a long list of items that go with that. I don't know what all that entails, where it might be able to speak to detail.
No, I'm talking our current restricted use. Do we have to?
Oh, yeah,
There'll be later, who checks on us or how do we?
there'll be a process to cap it off and to do that appropriately, and I imagine that would require an inspection as well.
I just want to say, Mayor Lindsay, you did give me the copy from the DANR. And maybe I misinterpreted what it said. I think when you gave it to me, you said this is kind of a form letter, which I understand, but they have a lot of contingencies on here that I was under the impression that you still need to prove. They were saying, yes, we've got to see that there's no contamination, that it doesn't flow into the waters of the state. A lot of things. I guess I'm not under the impression that they said, yep, it's okay. I thought this
And
letter.
Pat, you are correct. They have not yet, and they won't until the application is submitted. And then they go through all the research on it and give a yay or a nay. So no, we have not met all their conditions. You are correct.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody need to make a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the purchase of the land for the new restricted use site.
Motion by Kelly,
I'll second.
second by Jure. Anything else? Okay, call for a vote.
Commissioner Digital,
Aye.
Commissioner Dwyer,
Aye.
Commissioner Shaw,
No.
Mayor Lindsay.
Aye.
Motion approves 3-1. Okay, moving on. Number 3, approve the name change on TIF number 3, developer agreement from PP6 to HME Companies LLC.
Thank you, Commissioner. So we have a few items here related to developer agreements with more than one TIF. The first one is quite simple. We have already approved the developer agreement on TIF 3. That agreement was originally with PP6. This simply acknowledges a name change to HME Companies. It is the same company, same people, just different name on the document. That's all there is to it. I'll stand by for any questions.
Yeah, just a name change. Need a motion.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll make a motion to acknowledge. Or approve and authorize, wait,
We're on number 3 for the name change.
to approve the name change of TIF number 3. The developer agreement from PP6 to HME Companies LLC.
Motion by Dre,
Second.
second by Kelly. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All
Aye.
those opposed. Motion carries. 4, acknowledge assignment and assumption agreement between HME Companies LLC and Rural Electric Economic Development, REED.
This item is also with TIF number 3, again with HME Companies, and I should say this is the TIF that covers the assisted living property being constructed out on the bypass at the hospital. This simply acknowledges that there is an assignment assumption agreement that's been either proposed or approved between HME and the Reed Fund, where they're using their financing. This is typical with several of our TIFs where they want the city to acknowledge that in the event that Reed wants to call for those TIF funds be assigned directly to them, that this has been approved and is able to do so. You know, we do have somebody here from HME. I don't know if you want to speak at all or you don't have to, just make sure you have the opportunities.
Thank you. No, I have nothing to add to that. Thank you.
You sat here for the meeting so far, so I'll at least give you your shot, so.
Thank you.
Stand by for questions.
This is, you said it's common. This is,
Yeah, and this comes, Toby Morris, our financial advisor, has reviewed this and was the one that sent it along. Okay.
we just need a motion to approve that.
Make a motion to acknowledge assignment and assumption agreement between HB Companies LLC and Rural Electric Economic Development REIT.
Motion by Kelly, second by Duray. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you.
You bet. Number 5, approve and authorize the mayor to sign tax incremental district number 5 developer agreement with Trojan Village LLC.
This developer agreement is for TIF 5. Trojan Village is the housing development that is proposed and planned for northeast side of town and the north end of DSU's athletic facility. So we have not approved development agreement with them yet. That's what's before you for action today. It identifies the project, which is the improvements to the property, primarily looking at streets, addition of curb, gutter, water and sewer. And the project costs are up to $5,856,702. This does not create any general obligation on behalf of the city that counts toward the debt limit. And as it states that the developer is the one bearing the risk that the TIF revenue may not be sufficient to pay for all these improvements. Staff recommend approval.
The boilerplate.
Yep, we reviewed this, the city attorney reviewed this as our financial advisor.
Need a motion.
I will make the motion to approve the authorization of the mayor to sign TIF District number 5 developer agreement with Trojan Village LLC.
Motion by Duray, second by Kelly. Further comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. 6, approve and authorize the mayor to sign change order number 6, Northwest 9th Street, Union Ave reconstruction.
This change order increases the cost of the project of $21,600. It is primarily for tree removal. It's $18,400 of change order. These trees were recently identified for removal due to some adjustments on the utility designs, as well as one curb cut being located underneath the tree, and then at the request of a few homeowners, and the staff agreed with that request. Also included in the change order is $3,200 for the addition of a couple sewer clean out systems.
So this removal is driven by a value engineering
Yeah, so.
exercise.
Yep, when we switched to Banner Associates for engineering and design on the construction administration, they identified some opportunities for changes and improvements to the design, which ultimately did save the city money. But this is one change that increases that amount back up a little bit. I think in the end, the city is still coming out ahead with
A net change.
Yeah, net change, yes.
Make a motion to approve and authorize mayor to sign change order number 6, Northwest 9th Street, Union Avenue reconstruction.
Motion by Kelly,
I'll second.
second by Duray. Any further comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Approved contract with Geotech for construction materials testing services, city administration.
Last meeting, we had approved the bid for the administration building for City Hall and the police station. Now we're coming back, going for the geotechnical services. So these are services that are generally underwent by us as the owner. And so Geotech has provided a proposal to do the necessary geotechnical services throughout the project for the cost of $18,750.
Is required in our loan. Or any
I don't know if it's required in the loan, but I would say it would be required for the project.
All right, I'll make a motion to approve our contract with Geotech for the construction material testing services of the city admin building.
Motion by Duray,
Second.
second by Kelly. Any other comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Number 8, discussion on construction of city administration building.
On the same topic, at the last meeting, while you approved the bid, there was discussion on what we wanted the precast panels be constructed with. So the two options are that you could have a precast panel with a thin brick inlay, or you can have it be a sandblasted, smooth finish to that concrete. Since the last meeting, we worked with our architect and the contractor to kind of come up with some options. So in the agenda packet, you had the same rendering with the two different types of concrete panels. So the one behind me to the left is the original one with the brick, and then also in the packet was that sandblasted option. Ultimately, we were looking for at least direction tonight. It's not listed as action. We would bring it back for you as a change order to make the necessary changes. We're looking for direction so we know which path we're going down. With the brick option, that would have construction start next spring, as those precast panels would take more time to create. With the sandblasted, that would allow our facility to have a start of this fall. And either way, whether it starts in the spring or the fall, it's roughly a 13-month construction time period. So there's a timeline difference and there's a cost difference. The original number was about $90,000 cheaper for the sandblasted option. I'll tell you what I mentioned last time, that I encourage you to look at which option you prefer for aesthetics on the building, as this is a building we expect to stand for 60, 70, 80 more years. And so I believe that it is probably best suited to pick which option you prefer best, as opposed to the one or the other based on the timeline of the cost. So, any questions?
I like the sandblasted look personally.
Yeah, I kind of said last week that I preferred the brick, and now that I see it, I'm like, save 90K and go with the sandblasted option.
Yeah,
The rendering helps a lot.
Absolutely.
but I think I believe that Jefferson building's got that sandblasted look as
Yeah, I was talking to Sonia earlier today, and she commented that there's a lot of newer buildings, especially in Sioux Falls, going up that have the sandblasted kind of clean, smooth finish. And the rendering of the building shows that you're still gonna have that stairwell on the south side of the building, which juts out, loosened glass and some other aesthetic changes, so it's not just a plain side of the building. So it, I think, still does look nice. Ultimately, your choice.
we don't need to vote, right?
Yes, again, not looking for action, but I would like some specific direction, which path we want to go down to, so that we can work with the contractor to get the balls moving.
I would say sandblasted.
I agree.
Mr. Mayor?
I'm open to either option in that, so, you know, that take your group right there, and whoever gives the indication of which I'm just fine with. I'm fine with either one of them.
Okay, thank you all for with that direction. We will work with the architect and the contractor to plan for the sandblasted finish, and we will confirm with them whether that fall start date is still a possibility. Thank you. Good.
Okay, number 9, update on 2023 infrastructure improvement projects.
I'll Ryan come up here. We've had a busy start to the summer here for sure, and Ryan will give updates on all of our SRF and RD projects.
Thank you, gentlemen. I always appreciate coming and giving these updates. So with that, the first project I wanted to bring you up to speed on is the Northwest 9th Street Union Avenue reconstruction project. This project includes water, sanitary sewer, storm sewer utility replacement, full width roadway reconstruction, partial sidewalk replacement, and this project's in the northwest side of Madison. A lot of the work that's been done lately, the water main has been installed in front of the elementary school. There's been a hydrant and a water main installed in the intersection of Josephine Avenue. And they've tied the west line at Union Avenue intersection. And there's a valve and a hydrant that's set at that location as well. They're currently, as of today, installing water main from Union Avenue intersection to the east, and they have completed the bore under the creek. As far as sanitary sewer goes, they've installed the sanitary sewer at Liberty Avenue intersection and across Northwest 9th Street to the mobile home park. And storm sewer junction boxes and storm sewer have been installed in the intersection of Liberty Avenue to the west, and then some has been installed in the Josephine Avenue intersection as well. So the contractor, Winter Contracting, has had to hop around a little bit and go from one place to the other rather than in a chronological order due to some utility conflicts. But project's going well. I believe we're still on time. Completion date for this project is on phase 2, which should be west of Josephine Avenue. The completion date is August 11th, and then a substantial completion on the area east of Josephine and North Union Avenue is September 15th, with an overall final completion date of October 6th. Next project is water system improvements phase 1A. This project included water, sanitary sewer, storm sewer, full reconstruction of the streets. This was a multiple block project in the northwest part of town. The remaining work on this is mainly ADA sidewalk ramps at Northwest 3rd and Catherine, and one at North Olive and Northwest 3rd Street. Other than that, there are some punch list items that remain, some concrete that needs to be repaired, some areas that need to be seeded and things of that nature. The next, and J&J Earthworks is the contractor on that project. The next project is the water system improvements phase 1B. This one also was water, sanitary sewer, storm sewer replacement, full depth roadway reconstruction and sidewalk. This project is also in the northwest part of town. The contractor is also J&J Earthworks on this project, and their subcontractor Beyond Concrete has been in town today working on remaining sidewalks and driveways. And then J&J will have their seeding subcontractor come in, till up the boulevard areas and seed those. We're currently out of the time frame that they should be seeding. So they're probably going to have to eventually come back and do that again, but they're going to elect to try to final seed now, taking the chance that it doesn't burn off. But there'd be a likelihood that they gotta come back and do some of that. And then they also have some of the same punch list project or punch list items on this project, the concrete move and replace of some driveways, some sidewalks, some ADA ramps, the typical things that you do to complete a project. Leads us to water system improvements phase 2A. This project also has a punch list that's being worked on. Again, a lot of these are concrete driveways, sidewalks. There's some valve boxes, things of that nature. There's a sanitary sewer cleanout that needs to get cut down. And then there are some pump lines that need to be reestablished in the curb yet. But Holme Inc. is the program on that, and their subcontractor Century are working on those remaining punch list items. And the next project is water system improvement segment 3. This project's in the northeast part of town. It includes water, a little bit of sanitary sewer. There's a couple manholes and a small amount of storm sewer utility replacement. This project includes some areas of full reconstruction of the road and other areas where there's a mill and overlay instead. The 2023 portion of the project will be Northeast 6th Street from Prairie to Roosevelt, and Roosevelt from Northeast 5th Street to Northeast 7th Street. And then there's a small little portion that's off of Northeast 3rd Street and goes up to Antelope Avenue. We had an open house on this on Thursday in the Armory. Had a lot of good conversation with people that live along the route, and we just would encourage anybody with questions to go ahead and give us a call. The work on the project started for the most part today on surfacing removals and tree removals. And the last project is the water tower. The water tower is scheduled to be jacked this coming Saturday on July 15th. And so nice to see that finally reach the top of the pedestal.
Looks nice.
Yeah.
Here, right there.
Yes, if there's any questions, otherwise, we'll just continue to work on any projects that are very important to the city.
Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a great update.
Okay, public comment, Roger Rolls.
Everyone, or good morning, sorry. Good evening, everyone. My name is Roger Olson. I live at the corner of Sixth and Prairie. I'm also part of the city zoning and commission. So I sit here tomorrow morning, so won't be too many hours before I'll be back here. What I want to talk about is the reseeding that took place on Prairie Avenue. I don't know if you guys have driven up Prairie Avenue, but I drive it every day. And it was horrible. Ryan was nice enough to come out, met with me a couple times there on my yard. They had to re-slope it from my own personal yard. They did a great job with that. Our concern is, and I'm speaking for some of our neighbors that couldn't make it here tonight, is what's going to be done with the reseeding of the yards. Because last fall when the snow came, I didn't have corn in my yard. This spring after they seeded it, I had corn stalk coming up.
Is that from the fill?
You tell me, is it from the fill? Is it from the seed? I mean.
Ryan, you want to address it?
Yeah, no, Ryan and I've been talking about this and I'm just, you know, he just mentioned that all your projects that you have, that's gonna be reseeded. Are we gonna have the same thing?
And you and I spoke, and
Yes.
I actually called Jameson and had a conversation with him as well, because if I was a homeowner on that road, I would be extremely frustrated with.
Well, there was two gentlemen today I saw at noon talking to them and they're pissed. I'm just telling you.
Yeah.
And I know I've been in the yard business for 16 years. I own A&H Lawn Service here in town. I put in a few yards myself. You don't, that's not a yard. I mean, I know there are specifications that take place in the contract, and I know it's not you guys, it's not Ryan, it's your contractors, their subcontractors, I get that, but who is watching over these folks? Who is verifying that they're keeping to our specs? I know Ryan said it's Banner in this case, it was them. Did they verify? Okay, I'm a QA manager, I have to verify things. To me, this is quality control that wasn't looked after. From the subcontractors, and Ryan and I work together in our meetings, and I thank him greatly, and I'm not pointing blame at anybody, but me as a homeowner, I'm trying to kill this stuff off now so it doesn't spread before something can get done with it. That's at my expense, which I don't care. But some of the elderly folks around me may not have that ability to do it. Okay.
Yeah.
So, go ahead.
Yeah, so as far as our QCQA process, I mean, when the contractor comes in to see those lawns, they bring in import material. We don't always know exactly where that import material comes from. But we do check the seed bag to make sure it's the right mix. We check the mulch to make sure it's the right stuff, fertilizer the same way. And then that gets installed under supervision of Banner personnel or city personnel. So our spec reads that the lawns have to be acceptable lawns free of eroded, bare and weeded areas. So the contractor very much has the obligation to get to that point. The problem currently is that we're out of our seasonal window, so we don't allow seating between June 15th and August 15th. Because it
Because
just
of the
burns
heat,
off
yep, I
because of the
understand
heat.
that, yep.
And so currently, there's not a whole lot we can ask the contractor to do because they're contractually obligated to do what they are per that contract. That contract says they can't see right now. So that's our struggle. Come August 15th, if we need to make sure that they come back and give you an acceptable lawn free of eroded bare and weeded areas, that will be done.
Well, they're gonna have to come in on a lot of them, just dig it all out. They're gonna have to dig it out, bring in good dirt, if it's the dirt, and better seed, I mean,
Was it seeded? Or
hydro seeded.
It was seeded, and I think, not to, make excuses or anything, I'm kind of speculating, but. They came in and seeded, and then that was, the next day happened to be one of the days that we've actually got heavy rain. And I went out and looked in the gutter, there was a lot of seed in the gutter, a lot of the mulch had washed off. Bad timing, I mean, it just simply was. But they are definitely under obligation to come back and repair that.
So what do we recommend our homeowners do? Do we just let them grow and let them just continue to weed like they
Well,
are?
you can't mow it because it just gums up the mower underneath. You can't do anything with it. You can't bag it, you can't mow it. I mean, you're gonna have to come in and either dig it out, till it all up, rake it out of there. I mean, it's junk. I mean, that's just the way it is. And we try to keep our city maintained. Most folks do. I'm not gonna say all do, because there's some yards in this town that need some help. I mean, Mr. Zenz has some tickets he's gotta go right in my eyes, but, for those of us that do take care of our yards, to see this come in, and with what's going on throughout the whole rest of the town, what are we gonna have? I mean, that's my concern, Sure, ours can get fixed. I'm working on it. I'm working on some of the neighbors for them just to help them out. But what about the folks that don't have it planned yet? What can we do? What can we learn from our mistakes on this? Okay. I go back to the tobacco we had with West Center Street. I mean, those folks had sorghum and everything else growing in their land, that was horrible. This is getting to be the same way. So we gotta learn from our mistakes on this, and what do we do? Okay, let's get down to the root cause of this and what is it? And do we have to pay a little bit more for the contractors to make sure they're doing it right? Or are we inspecting the tanks before they start filling with stuff? I mean, what do you do? And like I say, I'm not pointing the blame at anybody here, because you guys don't have anything to do with it. Ryan really doesn't have anything to do with it. It's the contractor and their subcontractors. So somebody's got to be held responsible to come back and take care of these folks' yard.
Yeah, and that is. That is-
Well, I know that, but you're not the one to put the seed down, but it's just.
We're holding that final payment, that's it, right? The final completion.
Yeah, so we haven't finalized this project out, so it's still in the phase where we are in, I call it the punch list phase, so. We're giving them direction saying, before we will final the project, you need to complete this list of items. When we final it, then there'll be a warranty period that kicks in,
Okay.
so.
But
Not that I'm forecasting this.
No,
Let's say
I understand that.
hypothetically, after August 15th, they do come back and seed, and it looks pretty good this fall. And then it comes to the spring and we get weeds again. They're still not off the hook.
Okay. But
Going back to Adam's question, like for now, like what do we tell our homeowners to do? Do they call us? What do we do?
Yeah, I mean, the best thing to do would be to cut these weeds down so that they don't bog up the mower so badly. But I know some of those weeds are very, very tall now, and this first mow is gonna be rough.
it's very rough on some
But
of them.
I think if they can, so, in my experience, so out at my house, I had to have a new transformer set, and then they trenched in a line, and I can't get anything to grow on that except weeds, and I'm having the same weeds.
Yep.
And so I know it's a badgers that try to knock those weeds down, but until I can get something established, and I'm kind of holding myself to that same seeding restriction, I'm just having to mow it, and I don't know what else to do.
So ultimately, you're saying that we can't hold their feet to the fire right now, but we will hold their feet to the fire.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, we'll reevaluate as soon as that seating window opens and we'll take care of what.
Can we draft a letter to the homeowners and just tell them that it's still under a warranty?
Yeah, I definitely
Just,
just that.
You know,
I'll get
just so
that
they
out.
know.
I'll get that out right away.
Maybe that'll help take care of.
Yeah, I mean, just so we know something's gonna get done, but like I say, ours is done, okay? What can we do to help protect the ones that are coming up to get reseeded? Are there steps that we can take to help prevent this?
And I think this goes back to what Brian and Weston were getting these projects bid designed sooner, right? So we should hopefully meet these windows sooner in the project instead of planting seed in less than ideal.
Right.
timelines.
Right,
So
but even when these were done, we were already at the tail end of the window when these were done.
Yeah.
They should have been there 3 weeks before what they were doing it. But I understand they've got I understand scheduling stuff and that. But it might be to where some of this folks that you just have to go to the homeowner and say, you know what, here's X amount of dollars. Because I learned early on in my yard business. The cheap way isn't the right way of doing it. I replaced a couple of yards because I use cheaper stuff, okay? And I'm not gonna give anybody, I'm not putting a plug out there for anybody, but I'm gonna tell you right now, I don't use any seed other than domestic seed. I use our premium brand and you're not gonna have what you have. And I'm not plugging for them, that's not the thing. But I know after years of experience, the cheap route isn't the way to go. And I'm not saying this was the cheap route, I'm not saying that the contractor didn't say, oh, you know what, yeah, well, this is what we bid, but this is what we got. It happens all the time in things, I know it does. But we gotta put a stop to it because we got too many street projects going on that we don't need this happening. And Ryan's got enough, I mean, my God, look, the guy lost his hair. You know, but let's take some worry out of this and put some steps, some checks in place and I'm sure Ryan does have that, but I'm sorry, sometimes you just can't trust your contractor. You gotta check up on them. So, but anyway, thank you for.
Yeah. And Roger, where they get the soil from is important, no question, you know.
Yeah, you gotta have, I'm sorry, screen soil. You don't use screen soil, you're gonna have this crap. That's just plain and simple. And you're gonna pay more for it, Mr. Lindsay, but it's well worth the money. You're not gonna have guys like me up here bitching about things. Sorry. Swear.
Nope, totally understood, totally understood.
You just gotta bite the bullet on stuff like this because people want their yards to look nice. And if they don't keep it up and you guys did a great job with it, well, then you send Mr. Zenz after them and get them a ticket. So, but thank you for listening to us and we look for some things in the future.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you.
I'm back.
Back. All right. What do you got for us?
Hey, I wanna know who's in, when the streets get done. How come they don't pick up the signs?
Signs?
Yeah, like on Northeast 9th Street by the old hospital, I've been there for 3 years and they haven't worked on it. It says road work ahead, or shoulder work. Ain't been no shoulder work up there. That sign's been there for 3 years.
Are they working at your place right now?
Huh?
Are they working in front of your place right now?
I should move it down.
Well, that's kind of like.
Then the other question is, who picks up the new sewers? They put the sandbags in there. I mean, so the stuff don't get in there when they're doing the street. Well, I know it's a dry year, but if you drive around the college campus and the new streets, they're all still there. You go by Muck Library, that street was done last year. And they're still there.
Brian can answer that probably.
Good. I didn't know that was their department.
So yeah, as far as the erosion control around the inlets and stuff like that, that's a requirement of your state water pollution prevention plan. So each project has, we call it a SWIP. So each project has a SWIP, and until the Department of Ag and Natural Resources finals that project, you're required to keep your erosion control in place. Same with the traffic control until those projects are final. You have to have that traffic control staged in case you need to shut a road down. And those signs are owned by the traffic control subcontracting company, so those don't belong to the prime contractor, they don't belong to the city. So it's their obligation to come and get their signage. But we don't tell them to move those until the project's done. And where we've had so many going on, I think there's a little bit of an overlap.
I think so.
Where when one project gets final, they don't take those signs away and bring new signs, they just turn that same sign around.
Well, the reason I brought that up, because I had some people from Minnesota Island, and they were around the campus, and
Yeah.
God, these streets are done, why they got them all signs up there?
Right.
It was like, no travel. You know where they're at.
Yeah.
And they got them turned,
You're right.
but they should pick them up.
Yeah, and I know folks get a little tired of seeing signs out in front of their house and, yeah, until they're done with them, they normally don't come and collect them.
I'm just wondering, I mean, these people brought it up to me, I said, I'll find out, go to the meeting, I find out.
Thanks, Jim. Appreciate it. Announcements, our next regular commission meeting will be held Monday, July 24th at 5:30. Motion to adjourn. Gray. Kelly. Good night.